Dan Stoltzfus and Dax Ferguson here with Thrive Podcast. We're here with Jon Simpson. Jon, just it's a pleasure to have you here. Thanks for coming on with us.
Thanks
we
for having
appreciate
me.
it. Yeah, absolutely. So why don't you start out and just tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you to where you're at right now?
Sure. So I've been in the marketing industry since 2000. So I've been working in the ad world for an ad agency, working at marketing jobs and all of that kind of stuff for about the first 5 years of that, and then went out on my own. So I've been on my own now for, good grief, almost 20 years.
That would be 18 if you're counting. So.
Well, it's 23, it's actually, it was in 03 when I went out on my own. So it's been 20 years. I lose track of that sometimes. But I started this company that we're talking about today, one of the companies we're talking about today, in 08. So right in the middle of the housing crisis, I guess. So it was a great time to start a business.
Yeah, I did it too. So
yeah. Father of three, married to a wonderful wife. Live here in DFW. Been here for my whole life. So we've lived all over DFW. Moved 17 times in 22 years of marriage. So
Wow.
we've moved a lot, but we settled down now and we really like where we're at. So it's good.
So why don't you tell us what companies you own and what they do?
Sure. So Criterion B is a marketing agency, branding agency, and we focus on multifamily. So we do basically everything from start to finish that any company that touches multifamily would need to market their businesses. So whether we work with software companies, with lenders, with manufacturing companies, with developers, construction, management companies, pretty much anybody that touches the industry, we can help them in some form or fashion, right? And so we love working with properties. It's something that we really got our start at working with Amly. So we were able to work with Amly back in 2011 on their corporate website, and then we were able to pick up a couple other large projects from UDR and some of their new developments that they were working on. And at the time, back then, we were actually working with agencies on all of their digital marketing needs for them. So we were working with about 70 different large Dallas-based ad agencies. So everything from Maroc and Publicis to Timberland McLean and several of the others. And we got to work on some amazing accounts, but we were the lowest man on the totem pole. And so we were always hunting for our work, right? And we were tired of that. Well, fast forward a few years, you look at where we were in the market, and this is 2012, I guess, and we said we need to focus. And my business coach was telling us to focus. My wife was telling me I needed to focus. And I had, I think, maybe 6 businesses that I was running at the time that I'd come up with. And I was like, okay, so we're going to shut them all down, and we're just going to focus on this one. And we looked around and said, what can we do? What can we focus on? And we'd already worked on Amly and UDR. And there was a ton of cranes in Dallas. So we said, let's pick real estate. There's so much going on. And in 2012, you could go to any of the conferences in Dallas that were real estate-based conferences, and everybody, especially in the multifamily world, everyone was like, guys, we're at the end of a double header, and this whole thing's going to come crashing down any minute. And we look up, and it's year after year, 2013, 14, 15, every year get more. We're a triple header now, and like the baseball analogies are never ending. So they just kept on going and going. And here we are, like a decade or 12 years later, and now we're having a small correction, I think, right? I mean, I feel like it's not going to be like a 08, right? So I think there's a lot of positive stuff happening as well, but we're definitely feeling it now. So 2015, we were able to start working with Resman, which is a large property management software company. We came in while they were still at only, I think they had 16 people at the time, so they were really small.
Oh, wow.
So we got to rebrand them. We did all of their marketing. We got to work on directly with Elizabeth Francisco, the president, for many years. We got to see him through several buyouts. It was an awesome experience. Private equity would buy them out. We'd have to re-earn our place at the table. Private equity would buy them out. We'd have to re-earn our place at the table. And it finally did run its course, and we were let go, but we're still great friends. We still work with a lot of them over there, which has been really nice. But that was just such an amazing experience in getting in with every level of multifamily, getting that starting ground. And as we started making connections in with the industry, we learned about different investor groups that helped Resman get started, right? And she was very open and free-flowing with all of her knowledge in the space, which really helped. And yeah, she saw us through some really hard times, I think. Elizabeth did with Resman. But that's kind of got down a rabbit trail now on Criterion B. But bring us up to date. We now work with all kinds of clients, all sizes of clients. We do everything from naming and branding for properties to social media marketing, other content marketing needs, creating white papers and social media and blogging and all of that kind of stuff, as well as creating avatars and personas for properties and companies and all of that side of things, to promotional products. So anything with a logo on it that you need, whether it's move-in gifts or whether it's just to use at a trade show, right? We handle all of that stuff. So I have an amazing team behind me at Criterion B. We've got, it's a full-service agency, so we've got account service, creatives, content developers, like programming developers, pretty much anything you need for your business we can help you with from a marketing perspective.
So that's Criterion B.
Yes.
And then you also have another company called Swifty. Swifty.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Knowing you long enough, I won't throw the jokes out today, but anyway, so Swifty, and what does Swifty do for the multifamily?
And probably most of your listeners know me as Swifty, right? I've had people even think my last name was Swifty. I am always wearing Swifty gear, right? I love branding Swifty. I love talking about Swifty. Swifty came about in 2018. We were in a meeting for Criterion B, presenting a logo concept, and the client sitting across from us had just bought a brand new management company. And the management company said, hey, I love what you've done. Can you do this for our other properties, which were Class Bs and Cs? And we had never done that before. We were all Class A ground-up development. And so we said, absolutely, and we gave them a big presentation, and she's like, oh my gosh, yeah, you're way out of our budget. We can't do that. So we said, okay, we got to come back to the table with a more affordable product line that all of these other people can utilize, right? And so in 2018, Swifty was born, and the idea was a self-service marketing platform for properties to be able to go in and get their website built, their marketing needs met, lower cost, template-based, theme-based, collateral materials, and things like that. And so we started building it around one client in 2018. We didn't release it to the public until 2020. So right when COVID hit was right when we released it, in January of 2020. And we got our first client that was not that client in 2020. And somebody it was Kevin Chalmers. Mm-hmm. So from Legacy REI Group, he came on, it's like, hey, I want to give you my entire portfolio. And at the time, it was before I had really kind of dove into the world of investors. And so he was kind of my first rodeo there. And so it went really, really well. 21, of course, COVID hit everybody really hard. We were no different. When you can't go out there and meet people, it's hard to get business out there. So in 2021, once COVID let up a little bit, I actually joined one of those investor groups, and I became a vendor, and I started actually because of you, right? I met Dax at one of these events, and he's like, man, you got to get in all these. And so I started joining like every one of them. And now I don't know whether to thank you or to hate you.
Your wife hates me, I'm sure.
Yes. So I think there's like 25 this year that I'm going to. So it's a lot of those. But, man, I meet such good people, right, at every one of them. And as a result of that, we look up now and we're still young, we're still a startup, but we have 180 properties now using the platform. So it's growing rapidly. So very, very grateful to the investor community. And I became an investor in 21 as a result of going to those meetings. So another big life-changing thing for me.
You drank the Kool-Aid.
I did. First meeting, I went there. They said, you got to sit in the meeting. For our vendors all have to sit through the first meeting. Left the meeting, called my wife. We got to join. Join the next week.
That's
awesome.
Awesome.
1 week. Yep.
That's awesome.
So is it fair to say Swifty's Criterion B light?
Yes, and I have a lot of clients that cross over, right? So Swifty only does 3 things. We build websites, we do Google Ads, and we do Google Business Management. That's all we do. So hopefully that didn't mess anything up. So, but yeah, we only do those three things. Everything else is Criterion B. So we now have clients, hey, we need photography. Okay, great, let me set you up with somebody at Criterion B. We'll get that going. You know, if you need collateral materials or anything like that, we do have a light version, a template-based version. Any of our larger clients, they say, no, we want custom. Criterion B does all the custom work. They can do everything for them that way. So they do have some crossover because Criterion B does also build websites as well, but they're going to build websites that are more for corporate side of things, right?
Yeah.
So they build it for Heritage, they build it for Knox, but they're for Fort Knox, so they're not going to build it for a property.
Yeah.
So they still use Swifty.
I want the pricing of the property, not what you give me. So
Right,
can we work
right.
that deal out somehow?
As long as you're good with a template that looks like a property, sure, that would work. Yes. So templates are how we keep our costs down. We automate everything. That's the whole idea is that we remove the stress off the marketing teams at these different companies. And so we do that by automation. If we can build a website in 45 minutes, right? So it's very, very automated. But that means that it's not as custom, right? Because and we'll get to AI here in a little bit. We'll talk about how that affects things. But we use a lot of AI in what we're doing.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So we try to stay away from obviously like the negative talk, and we all know there's issues in the market right now. Things are rates are high and volume's a little low right now. Those things we don't have to point out because they're just there. But what are you doing that's helping folks right now like navigate through this market as it stands?
Sure. So the approach we take to everything is consultative. So how do we help you in what you're doing? And I'm pretty much an open book, and I give everybody my cell phone number, which I'm happy to do that at the end of this call as well, right? If anybody wants to call and talk marketing, I love talking about marketing, right? So I believe in giving value first, and then, karma has a way of coming back to us all, right? So put out there put out what's good and let them do with it what they will, and then hopefully that helps. So I teach a free webinar every week, all on marketing at the property level, specifically on the property level. So if you come to that class thinking you're going to get something out of it for something else, you probably won't, because it's very focused on properties. But specifically from a Swifty perspective, that is our client base, right? And right now we're in a tough leasing market, and it's one of the toughest ones I've seen in 10 years, right? So it's just really hard. Even though we have like 500 people a month, I think, moving in to Dallas, we still are having issues with that. And so I feel like there's a lot of things that people can be doing to market their property on their own for low cost. Google gives us a platform, Google Business Profile, that I still am shocked to know how many people haven't even claimed their listings right on that. But it's a free tool. It takes elbow grease. If you have time and you can put in 5 to 10 minutes a day, that's all it takes. It's really easy. And I actually wrote a book on that too, that we're having printed now. But the whole idea is to teach people how to manage Google Business Profile on their own. You shouldn't use a company like mine to do that for you until you've already exhausted your own resources and know that, hey, I just don't have the bandwidth to do it. And then I'd love to do it for you. But really, you should do that on your own first. So that's probably the biggest, the single largest thing that people can do that doesn't cost them anything. That said, my most successful clients in a down market are those that never stop marketing, right? And I'm not just selling marketing, it's the truth, whether they're using me or somebody else. The people who keep marketing are the people who still show up when people are out there looking. So you want to continue your marketing efforts.
Yeah, we're seeing in the market that occupancies are changing and things of that nature, but the qualifications of the tenants coming in today, has changed, right? So where you used to find 20 qualified tenants, now that same 20 may only be 5, right? Today. And so the parameters have to change, or you have to do better marketing to get the other in to fill the vacancy. So, that's what I've seen, and I have a lot of shared customers with you, and they tell me all the time that, man, John's just hammering it, hitting all these different areas, and our foot traffic has not slowed down. And he goes, now we have more foot traffic because we may have spent a little bit more to get more qualified leads, but foot traffic hadn't slowed down. So that's what I have found. Of course, you do all of our work at Heritage, our marketing materials and whatnot. We give away at shows and business cards, and you've taught me a ton about going more digital than, staying handout and do this, although I still am a tactile person, is that right? Or you have to physically have something. So I like to do kind of all aspects of that. But where are you kind of seeing your business or businesses, kind of change in this time in more of a AI or a digital, whether it's social media or websites? What are you kind of seeing take over, or how are you transitioning to do more of that? You touched on a little bit, but
yeah, let me step back just a second, and we'll talk about how things have changed. And kind of a rule of thumb that a lot of people have heard is that it takes 7 touch points to get someone to react, right? So that's a general marketing rule of thumb, is that I have to be in front of them 7 times before they remember who I am. That rule of thumb was written by the ad industry in the 1930s. So this was way before they had internet, before they had TV, before they had radio, before they had 10,000 messages, or I think it's 10 or 40,000 messages a day bombard us. So you can imagine how much we need to improve that number, increase that number, right? Gary Keller wrote a book on marketing for realtors, probably at least a decade ago now. And in that book, he says it's 32 points that you have to stay in front of your current clients every year just to stay top of mind with your current clients. So again, you start thinking about how many times do I have to be in front of somebody before they're going to remember me, or even come into my door, or all of those things, and it's a lot, right? So when you consider touch point can be anything from a tumbler that you give at a trade show, to an email that you send, or a birthday card, or an anniversary card, or an email message, or a newsletter, or a phone call, right? Anything that you can do to keep that name in front of them, and remembering, okay, I've got to get in front of them again and again and again and again and again. Well, when you're talking about people who don't know you yet, and you're talking about digital and how we do that with social media, if you can get them to follow you, or listen to your podcast, or see an ad, a Google ad, a Facebook ad, an Instagram ad, all of those little touch points help, right? And so when we're talking about properties and what are they doing today that's different than even a year ago, AI, that's new. It's new to the public, right? AI has been a thing for a decade or more in other areas, but now it's never been accessible as it is today. ChatGPT has made it accessible to everybody, and now since they announced that in like February, I think, since then, now you've got all of these million other companies that are popping up that are doing the same thing, right? And so it's a race to see who can best utilize the tool set that's now been given. And for people who, a lot of people, that's going to overwhelm them, right? It's like, oh my gosh, where do I start? What do I need to do? And I still talk to people who have never once logged into ChatGPT. They've never used ChatGPT for anything, right? And how it's such a fun thing just to play with on your own, to kind of learn it. But then you can start wrapping your head around, how does this help my business? How does this help your business? How can this help our company? And how does this just help us get in front and stay in front of people? So one of the most challenging things, I think, for apartments to do well is to maintain the reviews of their properties, right? And so you start thinking about, okay, well, I've got to be on top of every review, not just good ones, not just bad ones. Well, in that class that I teach, I always say you never have to ask for a negative review, but you always have to ask for positive reviews, right?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people are, I don't know if they're just fearful or whatever, but they don't want to ask. They don't like asking. You absolutely have to ask for positive reviews. But negative reviews, a lot of them go unanswered. And that just makes you look even worse.
And it takes 100 positive reviews to wash out one negative.
Because you can't get rid of it.
Right.
You can only push it down.
You just push it down, yep.
So and there's another misconception that I hear a lot from like, oh, we're just going to rebrand. Well, that does nothing for your Google reviews because it follows the physical address. It doesn't follow the name of the company or the name of the property, right? So there is not an easy solution to do that. But now with ChatGPT, I can run a negative review through ChatGPT and say, hey, I need to write a politically correct response to this that will be sensitive to whatever their concern was, and it will make me not look like an ogre, right? I'll be able to do this, and then you can leverage that, right? So you can make that. So we've built that technology. Again, I get a lot of our good ideas from our clients. I was having lunch with Kevin Chalmers again, and he's like, man, I just tied ChatGPT in through Zapier, and it's doing this, and this. It's answering all my reviews. It's doing all this stuff for me. I'm like, that's awesome. I'm going to build that into our tool. And like within a week, we had that rolled out. It's like, so now all you do is connect the two dots, and now I do make you check a lot of disclaimer boxes saying, if you're going to let ChatGPT respond to all your reviews automatically, I'm not held responsible for what ChatGPT says. But you can also use the manual version where it just says generate a response. It'll generate the response right there, and then you can click post and it'll post it. So there's a lot of areas where we can take AI and just improve what we're already doing. Amenities is another one. We're working with a ton of investors who might be new to multifamily. Well, when they buy a new property and it has a set of amenities, they typically don't come from the multifamily background, so they don't know a lot about the industry coming into it, and they probably don't come from a creative background. A lot of my investor clients come from corporate backgrounds, right? And so they're like, well, it's got a pool, and I got a grill, and it's got, some laundry stuff. So we then say, okay, great, just list them all out. And then there's an AI assistance button next to each one where it'll turn pool into like sparkling lounge area or whatever, right? It's like, it does that creative writing for them to make to really make it sound better. So there's a lot of there's little things we can do to add in AI to every single bit of what we're doing, right? All of our content is now AI generated. And so if you don't, again, those listening, if you haven't used ChatGPT, it's only as good as the prompts that you give it. And a really good example of this would be if you had two kids writing the same school essay on the Pilgrims, and you said, hey, write me an essay, ChatGPT, on the Pilgrims. They're both going to get something very similar to one another. But if one of the kids says, no, I want you to write me that same paper, but I want you to do it from the perspective of an 8th grader, and I want it to be I want it to be written like an 8th grader, but from the perspective of one of the 16-year-olds that came over on the Mayflower, right? And let it write it from that perspective. Those two papers will now be completely different, right? So the better your prompts can be, the better that result is going to be. And so I've had clients that are using it to write everything from eviction notices and letters to legal letters and documents, to reviewing contracts for them, to doing review responses is, again, an easy one. And then on our clients that we're doing bigger website builds and where we don't write the content, they can leverage it, and they can take a site that they love and they can say, hey, I love this content, but here's a little bit about my company. Now rewrite it based on my company, and it'll rewrite that content for them. So it's definitely a game changer.
Yeah. So I'm going to get a little technical, but as far as websites and that kind of thing goes. But I'm gonna try to keep it to where most everybody can understand. So, what's the best return on investment when it comes to site design, development, that kind of thing? So, where should people focus?
Mm-hmm.
So SEO, search engine optimization, obviously that's like a work-based, not pay-based thing that you can do to get traffic. Paid search, PPC, campaign management, that's obviously a paid deal that you have to have like a direct-to-consumer type business to support, or retargeting, remarketing. There's all these. So obviously we said the more touch points. There's the mass email blast that we can that I'm sure y'all can do. What's going to be the best bang for the buck? What's going to deliver the most return if someone's trying to go that route?
So it's never an either or. It's always how much of this can I afford, right? And working with someone to help work within the budget that you outlay. And so a lot of times, it's a standard question for us to say, what's your budget? And it's a standard answer to get, well, I have no idea. What do I need, right? But it's a lot harder to work with the sky's the limit, and I can outlay a million things, rather than say, okay, I know what we got to work with, and I know how long we have that runway for. And so we can work towards it because, like you said, SEO is an earned media. And so because of that, it's only going to work as hard as we work. And it takes time. It's not overnight, right? And so I get angry people, every company I talk to says it's going to be 6 months to a year. And I was like, well, unfortunately for that tactic, that is true. It does take that long because you mentioned a minute ago, you said it takes 100 positive reviews to push down one negative review. Well, the rule of thumb for content, if you want to beat your competitors from a content perspective in search engine, it's 1.5 times the amount of content that they have, you need to have. So if somebody had, say, 50 blogs written or 100 blogs written about renovating apartment units, and you want to be number one for renovating apartment units, then you need to have 150 articles on that. Well, you can't just release those overnight. You can't just come up with 150 articles and then place it. Google has to have time to archive or to read them, to archive them, to understand what they're about, and then you earn that placement. And so you'd want to post like one a day. Well, now it's going to take you 150 days to get those same 150 articles out there. Well, that's 6 months to do that, right? And that's just one keyword. So you start thinking about, okay, well, there's an amazing marketer, Neil Patel. He's one of the most recognized, I think, digital marketers right now on Google. And if you do digital marketing, you'll find Neil Patel. Great guy, amazing teacher, and he talks a lot about the tactic that he uses a lot is called a pillar post, where instead of writing 150 small posts, he'll do one that's like 3,000 words, right? Big one. And instead of keep adding new ones, he'll just keep revising the old one. Just keep it up to date, but it has so much information in it that you can go and really learn everything there is to know about renovating an apartment unit by reading that one post, right? And so, but again, it's an earned thing that comes over a long period of time. So you've got SEO, and depending on which part of the industry you are in or you touch, my feelings and opinions on SEO vary greatly. Where I feel like from a construction perspective, for a company like Heritage that works nationally, traditional SEO is awesome. You need to do it. Hands down, you need to do it. You can't avoid it because the alternative is going to cost you forever. You never stop renting, which is AdWords. Huge fan of AdWords, but it's renting versus owning. SEO, you own it, right? But it takes a lot of effort and time. So you'll keep doing it. But as a properties never compete in anywhere beyond like maybe a 5-mile radius at most of their property. They don't need traditional SEO. They need local SEO. It's hyper localized, right? Well, the number one tool for local SEO is Google Business Profile, which isn't even on your website, right? It's off of your website, but it drives traffic there, and it will generate more conversions and more revenue for you than apartments.com ever will, or any other tool, because that's where people are searching is right there on their phone in the area, what they're looking for, right? So it differs. My theory on AdWords also, or my opinion on AdWords also varies depending on what your company is and what you do. Like where a Heritage or a Knox, Fort Knox, you're going to be paying a lot more money for Google AdWords,
Right.
because you're on a national basis, right? Now, if you said, I only want to focus in these 3 markets, that'll cut your budget way down, but you're still fighting against every other national supplier that does what you do, right? And so it's a huge challenge. So you got to be willing to have deep pockets, and you're like,
Yep.
hey, a normal job for us makes us X, Y, or Z dollar amount. Well, I'm going to say, how much can you afford on a good lead then? How much can you pay for a client? Like what are you willing to spend to get that client? And we can work backwards from that number and say, okay, this is what we can afford to spend on AdWords, right? So AdWords.
Yeah, it's a pay-per-click type thing. So you're paying for everyone that clicks on your site, whether they buy something or not,
Right.
in the paid search. So back in 2006 or whatever, it was maybe $3 per click in my space,
Yep.
in the security space, and then not maybe 10 years later, it's $30-$40 per
Or
click.
more.
Yeah, and then you have to, out of that, how many are going to call to transfer from a click to a call, and then how many are going to go from a call to a sale, and then how many are going to go from a sale to an install, and then that number waters down the entire way
That's exactly right.
until you're spending $1,000 per acquisition.
That's exactly right. And so working backwards, like most companies that you ask, they won't know their acquisition cost, right? It's a hard number to get for a lot of companies, but knowing that is the key to really knowing how much you can afford and how much you can spend. So
And you can track that in a paid search world, but like you said, in the SEO space, it's necessary to cut the cost of the paid search.
Yeah.
And that should always be running in the background, in my opinion.
Well, and we're like, even on the paid side, you can track it to an extent, but like where you're focused on click-through rates, and it's going to track conversion rates, but it's not going to tell you why it's converting, right? So I may get a lot of clicks on an ad, and that might take them to my website, but then maybe I only convert 5% of those people. Well, why did I only convert 5? Why didn't I convert 10? Well, AdWords had nothing to do with that, or very little to do
Yep.
with that. It's the website's job to say, okay, well, was it clickbait? Did I sell them the wrong thing? Did I tell them it was something different in that ad than when they got here?
And what's your call to action on the site? Are you doing a
What are
capture
those
page,
conversion
or are you doing a
points?
call? Click, trying to use your action to call, or
And how hard did you make it for them? How
Yep.
easy did you make it for them?
Yep.
Right? I mean, that's the goal. Is like it has to be easy. So another thing you mentioned earlier was geofencing and geotracking, and that's another thing that, depending on what you do in the industry, would dictate whether or not that's even something you should look at. A clarification real quick is geo-targeting. We all do, right? Geo-targeting, if you use Google Ads, you are geo-targeting within those ads because you want to only show up. If you're not, you definitely should be using those filters, right, as you set up those campaigns. But you want to hit people, like I said, in a 5-mile radius. I don't want my ads to show up outside of that because I'm going to get the wrong people. I want to be very hyper-focused. With geofencing, we can actually draw polygons around buildings or parking lots or whatever, and then on top of that, I can layer in titles or other information like I only show these ads to commuters, or I mean, the sky's the limit. It's pretty nuts, all the level of filters, like 2,000 filters or something that you can add, demographic things you can put on top of those ads. We did this for some ERs a while back, and for the ERs, we would put polygons around the local hospitals, and we'd say, hey, we'd serve our ads to the waiting rooms. Hey, are you tired of waiting? Our doctors can see you now. And it's like driving them to these standalone ERs. Well, that worked like a charm. I mean, we had all kinds of people coming in who are tired of waiting, right? But that doesn't always work in every industry. So like if you have a condos or high-end luxury apartments in a densely corporate environment, you can target those corporate environments, target their C-level staff and all that, but it's an expensive thing to do, right? So it's one of those things that works best if you have a brick and mortar and you have a large budget to spend.
Yeah, I know some people that were doing some geofencing in the automotive industry, and they were looking for employees, right? And so they would put in the service field. Let's just use that. So they would put fences around their service area, and all the employees that would be in there, and they'd open up their phones while they're at work. Hey, you need a job? We're paying, this. And it was always a higher margin or whatever. And it's like, man, that's pretty brilliant, right? Or you're looking for a used car, go over here. So it was interesting to see how that worked, and that was 10 years ago.
We did one for not too long ago, so maybe 2 years ago, for a parking garage in downtown Houston that just opened as attached to a luxury high-rise, and they were trying to rent out the extra spaces. And so we drew around every other parking lot in downtown Houston. We targeted anybody who's parking here from these hours, start serving them our ads. Hey, we're the newest game in town. You can park here for X. It was less expensive than the other guys. We hit every bar, people who had day workers.
Yep.
All of them. We hit every bar and restaurant who had employees that were parking in the day parking. We hit all the corporate buildings. All of them. So, and it worked really well. So,
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So we kind of got off in the weeds a little bit on some of the technical stuff about marketing. We could probably talk about that all day and bore everybody to literal tears. But to kind of hone it back into the multifamily space, I think from what I understand, you have services that would for operators that will serve well for the individual properties, for vendors in the space, that goes a lot deeper than just the property level stuff. But focusing just on the property level stuff, the operators that are out there watching right now, what can you say would be the best suggestion or advice you can give to them to enter this space without being too confused about all the other options that are available? Like, would you say like Swifty is the way to go, or what?
I would love to tell you Swifties are the only way to go, but in reality, the number one thing you can do if you don't hear anything else is go take over your own Google business page. It's free. Do it on your own. Go out there and try it. Don't hire any company to do it for you, me or anybody else, until you have tried to do it on your own. You should be doing it 3 days a week. Post every day. Well, a trick that you can do, I did this for myself. I went on to ChatGPT and I said, write me 100 questions and answers for Google, for my Google business profile. And I said, here's information about me. And I copied my homepage content. I pasted it in. And it wrote me 100 questions and answers. Okay, that's almost a full year's worth of content for ChatGPT. I copied it, pasted it into a spreadsheet. I read each question, and I edited it accordingly just to make sure I agreed with it. And I read each answer, and I, again, edited them until I was happy with them. But it took less than 2 hours to get a year's worth of content for me to post on Google Business Profile. Then I set up a calendar reminder every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday at 7:45, and I put in the link. Click here to go to your chat, to go to the spreadsheet. Click here to go to the profile. And it takes 2 minutes, 3 days a week. If you just do that for your property, you will start seeing yourself go up in the rankings. I will say there's only 3 slots available. There's only 3 slots available to get in the map pack, which is that part of the Google search that you were trying to get into. That means you have to work harder than the guy next to you, right, to do that. And recently, within the last 3 to 6 months, Google has now made it possible to buy one of those 3 slots. That means now you have 30% less, or I don't know what the statistical analysis would be on that, but it's a lot less chance of getting up there because now you only have 2 slots, right? But you can buy it, which is nice. And like I said, it's not one or the other. You need to be doing both. And we didn't talk about too much, but the ILSs that are out there, that's a cost of doing business, guys. You have to do it. So if you can't afford apartments.com, you need to look at rent.com, Apartment List, Zillow, Zumper, or any one of the others. Find one that fits within your budget, and you need to do that. And I'll say it because of this. There's only a couple intent-based ways that or marketing tactics that you can utilize for your properties. And by intent-based, I mean it's for people who are actively searching for an apartment in the moment, right? So AdWords is one of those because they're looking for apartments near me or apartments near Phoenix or whatever. The ILS is you don't show up on apartments.com randomly. You're there because you're searching for an apartment, right? And your traffic is there. Your traffic is on all those ILSs. And if you can't afford all of them, you have to be judicious with who you choose. But look at them and pick at least one. You need to be on at least one of those in addition to doing that. Now, Swifty, I would love to have your business. And like I said, I feel like we do more for you at a lesser cost than any of our competitors. And we do it a lot faster. So we can do it in 45 minutes. We can launch a website. And we're very, very responsive. So, again, try us out or just call me and I'll talk to you because I would love to do that.
Yeah. And I know you're trying to be nice and you're trying to help folks out and all of that and give out free advice. And I get that. But I'm going to say I would highly recommend that folks contact you because I think you probably downplayed the importance of map listings and organic optimization and the importance of ranking well in that, because I think folks have gotten really used to and kind of accustomed to the paid search and the folks that are paid ads, they'll skip right over. I know I do, because I'm looking for the company that has solid content and solid reviews and all of that are going to show well in the organic optimization. So they're going to show well under the paid search ads. And the only way they're going to get there is if they have help, in my opinion. I don't think that they're going to be able to do it on their own. So I recommend they call you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I agree with almost everything you just said, especially when it talks about on the company level. The property level, the only way they'll ever beat, and it's not just in my opinion, I think it's in my experience, they'll ever beat the ILSs in organic search is to pay for it or do the elbow grease for the map pack, because everything below the maps is dominated by ILSs because they've got so much money and they've got so much content, right? So apartments.com, with tens of thousands of apartments listed, they push the true organic searches that are not ILSs so far down that list that they won't be seen.
Yep.
And so Google Business is absolutely, which is organic to your point, is the best thing they can do. But next to that, buying it is the only way to get up there at the top above the ILSs. So if it's on the company level, I'm exactly like you. I see the ads, I see who has purchased, but then I scroll past to see if those same people are at the top of the organic. Yeah. So then it kind of helps separate them. I know they're paying and I know they're got organic. I'll cut them a break and I'll click on the organic one.
Yep.
Right? Because I know they have to pay for that top one for every person they get. So, but it is, now they got 2 touch points with me. Yep. Right? They got both of those spots. So yeah, that's very, very important. Very true.
Well, very cool. Well, thanks for your time today. I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming in. But how does people get in touch with you? How do you want them to get in touch with you besides texting me and going, hey, I need to get with Jon. He looks like he's a really cool guy. Tell me what you think.
Just call Dax. he will tell you how to get a hold of me. No, please, my cell phone number is 214-477-9450. I've had that number for 25 years. It's not going anywhere. So call me there. You can also check out criterionb.com. That's CRITERION, and the letter B as in boy.com, or beswifty.com. And that's BE Swifty. You can see my hat if you're on video. But SWIFTY.com to find me there. I'm also on pretty much every social platform, LinkedIn, all of those. But yeah, please reach out. I'd love to talk.
Well, thanks a lot, Jon. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This has been fun.
It's been fun.
Yeah.
And done.
And done.